What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Golf on Tap. As always, I'm Jack Bushman, joined by Ross Baran. If you're watching us right now, make sure to jump on over to the YouTube feed so you can interact with us. Let us know who you're going to be tailing for the men's Olympic golf competition that's going down this week at Le Golf National in Paris, France. Also, let us know your thoughts about Jhonattan Vegas coming through on Sunday to snap his 7-year win drought. We'll be talking about all of that on today's episode. Another reminder, though, off the top real quick, be sure to go and follow Golf on Tap on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. It's 100% free, won't cost you anything. That way you're able to catch up on all of our latest conversations, even if you're not able to join us live. Ross, I know it wasn't necessarily the Sunday outcome that you were looking for, as you had Maverick McNeely in that final pairing along with eventual tournament winner Jhonattan Vegas. You also had Max Grazerman, I believe, who went absolutely nuclear on Sunday with a 8 under 63 to tie the low round of the tournament. Ultimately wound up not being enough. Jhonattan Vegas with an incredible 95-foot two-putt to secure the 3M championship. As I said off the top, snapping his 7-year win drought in his first win in over a decade that wasn't up in Canada. He won twice back-to-back years at the RBC Canadian Open. And I got to give a shout out real quick off the top, Ross, to Joey Ricotta. He jumped on the show with me late last week on Wednesday before the tournament got going Thursday morning. And we dissected some of our bets and some of the guys we were going to be tailing. And one of the guys he mentioned that he was going to take a bomb on was Jhonattan Vegas at 90-1. And I remember pulling up his profile, looking at it. You know, he had been striking the ball absolutely well. I believe had a T20 at the John Deere a couple of weeks ago, but hadn't been making putts as of late. So that ultimately kind of shut the book on him, in my opinion. Joey ended up cashing through the 90-1 outright. Ross, I know it didn't end up going your way, and I apologize. I hope the next one will. Better betting luck for us both. Don't worry. At least you had a guy who was legitimately in the sweat. I had Cameron Davis, who anytime he got a sniff of being in contention, absolutely lost his drive off planet of the earth. But Ross, let me know how you're doing here on this Monday afternoon and your thoughts on what actually wound up being a pretty enticing final couple of rounds to the 3M Open, I thought.
Well, I'm just going to open by saying this was easily the most heartbreaking loss of the year for me. And we've had a lot with like Wyndham at the Players against Scotty with a missed putt. This one hurt the most because I had two guys over at least 50 or over on my card, both of them sitting there at the top of the board on the final round, and to come home solo second and T3, both of them combining for a total of 2 shots back. This one's going to take a while to recuperate from, but congratulations to Johnny Vegas Bombs and finally breaking the 7-year drought. Unbelievable weekend and overall unbelievable tournament. There was a couple days there where it looked like anyone could come and get it. I mean, you had Mav McNeely go super low on Saturday. Then you have Max Grazerman come from the clouds and go nuclear when everyone's struggling to just play the course even. Mav's, you got Max shooting 8 under.
Yeah, I mean, it really did feel wide open going into the weekend, especially hearing that Saturday was going to be super windy conditions, especially in the afternoon, allowed for some guys to go out early and post some low scores. I was really thrilled with how the tournament wound up playing. And I mentioned this on when I was talking through the research a little bit last week, Ross, that 3 out of the 5 previous years, this was the 6th year of the 3M Open. 3 of the previous 5 had been absolute birdie fests. The other 2 had been a little bit more difficult. And that's kind of what we got this year with the winds picking up and also the temperatures and the course being baked out more and more on Saturday and Sunday. It felt like, guys were still able to find greens, and they didn't find the water hazards nearly as much because the course is still relatively wide, but a lot of guys were having to putt from 80 or 90 feet because they just weren't able to stick a whole lot of shots close. And I was happy to see TPC Twin Cities kind of show its teeth a little bit, and that's what alluded to or led to everyone kind of having a feel like they were in it regardless of where they were. If you made the cut, really, you had a chance going into this weekend. So I really, really enjoyed what this tournament wound up being, even though it was, a bunch of jabronis the week after the major. You do come to enjoy those type of tournaments as well. And man, Taylor Pendrith, I got to bring him up as well because he was really the guy on after a really low round on Friday and then had it going early on Saturday. It kind of felt like it was his tournament to lose there for a little bit, but then some really boneheaded decisions and his best weapon, that putter of his, went really cold on Saturday, and that brought everyone back into the field. He's probably got to be kicking himself a little bit that he let that thing kind of get out of his grasp on Saturday. Maverick McNeely, I think, I got to give you credit for the Maverick tip this past week, Ross, because I didn't like full poo-poo on it on the show, but Mav has been a hot commodity throughout the course of the summer ever since he's returned from that shoulder injury that really derailed his last season and cost him some time off and away from the golf course. He flashed some upside there early on in the year and people had been tailing him. I personally didn't think, I just felt like it was a little bit too early in terms of him winning outright, but he was right there up until the end. The iron game, though, Ross, just didn't hold steady throughout the course of Sunday. We know the short game did. I mean, he was getting himself out of jail time and time again. And with the course conditions playing a little bit more difficult, that kind of kept him in it, but ultimately just didn't make enough birdies or give himself nearly enough birdie looks down the stretch. It felt like he was putting for par every single hole.
Yeah, and that's the vibe I got for a lot of Saturday and Sunday, depending when you went out and what the wind conditions were. Like you said, especially Saturday, the later groups, there were a lot of guys on the long par fives and stuff where they're on the green, but it's 90 feet away, and it was kind of like, this is a very popular spot of take your medicine, get out of there, up and down, where they're not going to push it. They're not going to try to shape the shot and get it in there close. That it's almost too risky. And it wasn't just the par fives. There was a lot of the par fours too. That second shot was just aim for the middle of the green and put it on the middle and take your medicine and two putt out of there for a par, because it's way more risky if on a lot of these to go for it. And I think, aside from Max on Sunday going nuclear, everyone else from the lead group shot like one under.
Yeah, no, Jhonny Vegas did most of his damage on Saturday when he went crazy on the back nine. I think he posted 6 birdies on the back nine to really grab control of the tournament. I was texting a few different people being like, I think 14 under might be the lead when this thing's all said and done. And he ultimately got it up to 16. But yeah, he didn't go super low or anything on Sunday. He was really just trying to stay steady. And I do have to give him credit for that because, that was kind of his strength, was the ball striking and giving himself a ton of birdie looks those Friday and Saturday rounds to really make a run up the leaderboard. Sunday, he wasn't getting as many chances, and there were opportunities for him to fall apart. He missed a short putt early on in the day, and then of course hit it into the water on the back nine, but wound up hitting a marvelous chip there to only go and save bogey and drop one shot. And then, of course, the final putt on the 18th, too, to go and seal it. That ultimately wound up being the difference. That wound up being what led to him shooting 1 under and getting that one shot win, putting it to just within a couple of feet there. And yeah, he just stayed steady. Out of the clouds, though, Jhonny Vegas bombs, man. I really did not see this one coming. Like when I pulled up his profile on rickrungood.com when I was talking with Joey last week, like I could see the driving and iron upside there, but I never thought that he was going to stay steady, like given how troublesome he had been with the putter throughout the course of the season. Like, yeah, maybe he can contend, but I didn't think he was going to go and win this thing. But hats off to the guy, a really solid performance and holding steady on Sunday, just enough to get the job done, Ross.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things was just his consistency around the greens.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things, I don't know if you noticed, but the punishment if you missed the green around the hole, the rough was so unforgiving this week. There was guys going for chips that are nailing it 90 feet past where they've got like a 3 foot spot to land it, and they couldn't even get it. They couldn't even get it out of the grass. That they were blading it. They're knocking it to the other side of the green. It was just everywhere. Taylor Pendrith had easily one of the worst. Was only like 3 or 4 feet off trying to chip. Absolutely bladed it out of the grass when he had maybe would have realistically been like an 8 foot putt and hit it like 90 feet to the other side of the green to come back for like a double bogey.
Oh, I'm very familiar with that. Cameron Davis did the same thing, I want to say, on 14. It was the same hole. I don't know if you remember. He was playing with Sahith in the final round. He and Sahith were both in like absolute jail on the right side of that par three. Sahith was in the bunker, and he put it to like 25 feet. Cam Davis put it to like 20 feet. Sahith goes and rolls in his putt to stay at 13, I think, at the time, and kind of keep him alive a little bit. Cam Davis has a similar putt, and of course he misses it. But yeah, a lot of troublesome lies and just a lot of difficulty around TPC Twin Cities, man. If you weren't playing in the fairway or keeping it where you should, if you got offline a little bit, you were having trouble. You were going to be fighting to make some big numbers. And the ninth hole was super penalizing all week long, especially Saturday into that super gusting wind. Tony Finau, who absolutely crushes the ball, was still having like 225, 230 yards in to the ninth green. So yeah, wound up being a phenomenal tournament. And Max Grazerman, man, he's been someone who's been on my radar the last few weeks, as I referenced on the show when you mentioned that he was going to be on your betting card. A little bit of a coming out type of party for him. Even though he didn't get the victory, he has been playing remarkably consistent golf over the last couple of months. And, not a household name, came up from the Corn Ferry Tour, earned his stripes, but is really piecing it together and is definitely someone I'm going to be keeping an eye on throughout the FedEx Cup fall, should he be playing in there regularly, which I feel like he's going to. But yeah, 8 under 63 on Sunday. Probably didn't envision that he was going to have a chance going into that final round, right? Because he was 8 shots back of Jhonny Vegas. And you imagine with the conditions not being as difficult as they were the day prior that, Vegas or Kuchar, who was 1 shot back at minus 15, you figured one of them was at least going to shoot 66 or 67, but Grazerman, like Vegas, out of the clouds, out of nowhere on Sunday, in rallying to put together a really strong finish, man. This kid, he's got some special abilities. I don't think he's ever going to be like an elite talent, but a sneaky good player that's flown under the radar, I think, on his first full-time PGA Tour year, Ross.
I definitely think he's going to be a more notable name once we roll into FedEx Fall. I also had Nick Dunlap circled for FedEx Fall. The way Nick Dunlap has been playing lately, aside from this week, following last week's win, I had Nick Dunlap circled for. I will not be surprised to see Dunlap win 1 or 2 events come into the FedEx Fall and, cap his rookie season with 3 or 4 victories on the card. So Grazerman definitely falls in that group. I won't be surprised to see a win or 2 coming into the fall, especially with the lighter fields. They feel like the more top tier talent you would expect to play the fall series to boost up for next year. So definitely going to be someone I'm going to be watching when we move into the fall swing.
Yeah, really liked the call last week. Unfortunately, in the world of outright betting, Ross, it feels like sometimes you have these great calls and they don't wind up cashing, but you just got to stay in the right mentality. All in all, a great week for you at the 3M Open. So keep the momentum going. Hopefully, we'll cash one this week for the Olympics, my friend.
Yep, we'll see. I'm breaking a personal rule, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that in just a moment. I did want to bring up, though, Ross, did you see the series of events that good old Mizzou boy Hayden Buckley had himself on Friday, I want to say, with his hole-in-one, but prior to that, being up near like the thick rough near the out-of-bounds line, and going to hit his shot, and he hits the literal stake that's right there that, you can't move. I don't know why he didn't move it before the shot. That is a movable obstruction there. And then he goes and gives it the Gronk spike after hitting it. Little did he know that in less than an hour's time, he was going to be hitting a hole in one.
Oh no, it made me laugh. I laughed specifically for that reason, that he could have moved it, didn't, ends up just smashing it with the shot, picks it up, and then just spikes it back into the ground.
That was golf in a nutshell 101. Even the tour pros can get as frustrated as us out there. But Hayden Buckley, something about getting holes in one on number 17. Did it at TPC Sawgrass, of course, in the 2023 Players Championship, and then a hole in one at the 17th at TPC Twin Cities. Hopefully better days ahead for my boy Hayden Buckley. It has not been the sharpest sophomore campaign for him. Ross, last little thought I had from the 3M Open, though, outside of Taylor Pendrith, who I mentioned earlier, I think is probably kicking himself for letting this tournament fall out of his grasp on Sunday. He actually wound up having a pretty good Sunday to close it out and finished solo fifth. I think Matt Kuchar, man, really has to feel like he let one slip away a little bit, because he played steady golf all week long, led the field in greens and regulation, was doing his thing, hitting a ton of fairways. He doesn't have, the distance to hang with the best of the best, but, he can still get his thing out there. And if hitting fairways is important, Matt Kuchar can still find his way at the top of the leaderboard. And he was finding ways to chip in on the 18th on Saturday to gain a couple of strokes, and was making putts from everywhere. But that just wasn't the case on Sunday, man. And an unfortunate time to do it, as you wrote about. Matt Kuchar is going to need a big week at the Wyndham Championship, which is not going down this week. It'll be following the Olympics once we return back in the United States the week following. Matt Kuchar is going to need a big week at the Wyndham Championship in order to keep his streak going of making the FedEx Cup playoffs. A win at the 3M Open would have really, really helped keep that streak alive.
Yeah, I mean, the article I wrote, I titled it "The Most Impressive Streak That You've Never Heard of." Since the inception of the FedEx Cup by the PGA Tour in 2007, only one player has managed to make the FedEx Cup playoffs every single year of their existence, and it's Matt Kuchar.
Yeah, that's definitely something that not many people, I would assume, even golf fans that are like in the know, are really aware of. But rather impressive that Cooch throughout his career has been able to keep this longevity and at least, pop up at the top of the leaderboards twice, 3, 4 times a year to keep this streak going. But yeah, I mean, usually early on in the season when we get in the Texas swing and like the Mexico Open, Valero, those are usually when you get in some Kuchar jams, but he just wasn't popping at those spots this year. This really felt like it was kind of his only opportunity at the top that I can recall off the top of my head, Ross.
Yeah, I mean, in the article I wrote, you could make an argument that Matt Kuchar is potentially the most consistent golfer of all time, for the fact that he's played himself into it, and it's just not the case this year. Normally, there's a few top 10s every single year that get him further up the board. You and I were looking at the FedEx Cup standings before. He's just not even really in the conversation this year. This was really the first tournament that he was in the conversation, and really he needed it to get himself in. We were already running numbers for moving forward, and the only way he's getting in is he is going to have to win the Wyndham in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm pulling up Kuchar's player profile right now at rickrungood.com. It has not been a good year for Matt Kuchar whatsoever. If you do remember, he had that good little stretch during the fall last year, but of course, the PGA Tour returned to the calendar year season in 2024, so that's not part of the season, but he finished T7 at the Fortinet, was T2 at the Worldwide Technology Championship in Mexico at El Cardinal at Diamante Tigers course. It was that debut, and it was really Matt Kuchar's tournament to win. Eric Van Rooyen just happened to go and steal it from him, but since then, no bueno. He has before the 3M, he had one finish inside the top 20, and it was a T17 at the Charles Schwab Challenge. So easily his best finish of the entire year. But yeah, still gonna take an absolute miracle for Kuchar to get in. It's probably looking like he's gonna have to get a win at the Wyndham in order to get in this bad boy. Because pulling up the FedEx Cup standings right now, Ross. Something that we talked about it a little bit more early on in the season. And I think just during the midway point, you get so caught up in the major championships that, the FedEx Cup, honestly, it's a little bit of an afterthought. But now that the major championships have come to a close for the 2024 season, it's back kind of on the forefront of things here. But looking at the folks who are a little bit on the bubble, I know we're looking a week ahead here, but just something to keep in mind before the season finale in North Carolina. From 60 to 70, you got Ben Griffin at 60, Minwoo Lee at 61, Jordan Spieth at 62. Looking at the points discrepancy, I think all three of those guys are pretty safe. Mark Hubbard at 64 is probably safe as well. Same with Nick Dunlap at 65. But Jhonny Vegas, after that win at the 3M Open, that boosted him up all the way to 66th, which kind of similar to Matt Kuchar, tells you how good Jhonny Vegas' season was going up until that victory last week. He's at 66, though. Emiliano Grio's at 67, Seamus Power at 68, Brendan Todd at 69, and then the Frenchman who will be playing this week, Victor Perez, currently has the number 70 spot. Those just on the outside, Davis Riley and Andrew Putnam, points-wise, have the best chance of creeping in. And then there's Kurt Kitayama and Luke List right behind them, along with Lucas Glover. A top 5 finish for those guys might get them in. Anything after, Lee Hodges, Adam Shank, Keith Mitchell has a significant points gap. Nikolai Højgaard. Those guys probably are looking at win situations or at least second place finishes in order to get in. Is there anyone on this list, though, Ross, either that's just on the bubble that you're kind of keenly looking at, or someone who's just outside that you're thinking has a really good chance, or maybe even as a surprise that isn't in the top 70 at this point of the season?
Well, I mean, I think obviously the most notable person outside the top 70 isn't even outside the top 70. It's Ricky Fowler's 102.
Yeah, that's crazy to think. I mean, Ricky's not even remotely close. It has been such a struggle-filled campaign for Ricky, and it's sad after all the good that he went through last year and finding that consistency again. Really, after that win, it hit the toilet once again, man. Like, he was bad at the Ryder Cup. He was bad down the stretch, like before the fall and in the playoffs. Scared we've lost Ricky again, Ross.
I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, just to show how hard it is to make the FedEx Cup playoffs, Harry Hall won ISCO a couple of weeks ago. Harry Hall's 82 on this list. So Harry Hall, even with, yet granted it was an opposite field event, but still, a win is supposed to get you these type of royalties and things on the PGA calendar. Harry Hall, no. Harry Hall has a win chalked up this season and is still 82nd on the list, and basically in the position he's got to end the season with 2 wins to make the playoffs.
Yeah, the alternate event, that one's a little tough, but at the same point in time, Harry Hall had not been very good up until that two start stretch where he finished T12 at the John Deere and then ended up winning. But I would agree, like, winning, even if it is an alternate event, like, you should be in the top 70. That's a little egregious in my opinion. How about Webb Simpson at 147, still getting into all these signature events? What a year out of Big Webb, really taking advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you're already one of the big names last year, back to back wins. You got Lucas Glover sitting outside at 75, looking like realistically he's going to need probably more than likely at minimum a top 10 to even have a chance at making noise.
Yeah, definitely. And Unlike last year, he did pick up the win at the Wyndham and then also went back to back at the St. Jude, the first leg of the playoffs. He was showing a lot of signs of life going into those tournaments. He was creeping up at the top of leaderboards. He is not doing the same at this point in time. So I'm concerned about Lucas Glover's chances for sure. Keith Mitchell, man, God, to think about how good his ball striking has been. I mean, he's literally been like a diet Scotty Scheffler from off the tee, and with his approach, he just cannot chip and cannot putt to save his life, man. Gotta be just a hair pulling type of year for our boy Kashmir Keith.
Out of the first 5 out, who do you have circled as the most realistic to jump in to the top 70 2 weeks from now? I only see one person, but it's very dependent on one thing.
I don't really love any of those chances. Kirk Kitayama, I will say, is probably playing the best out of any of them here. A little bit of life as of late, so I'll probably go Kitayama out of those first 5.
I'm very close to you. I have Andrew Putnam. Putnam, if the putter can come back, the putter was non-existent this past weekend, and he was all over the TV because he was a storyline that he was a bubble guy already, and they focused heavily on his short game, and it was non-existent when they were showing him all weekend long on the TV. I think if he can ball striking off the tee, everything is good overall for him. He's got to find that short game. If he can, I won't be surprised to see him. I mean, he's only 8 points outside from the 70. That is just basically like a top 20 finish or so here, and Victor Perez not playing well. That's basically a coin flip, but Putnam would really be the one I'd have circled.
Yeah, really tough weekend for Putnam, man. He was right there through 36 holes. Looking through this list, I'm just seeing if anyone inside these rankings like surprises me where they're at. Max Homa being 33rd, that kind of surprises me. What has Max Homa done this year? Like, legitimately, off the top of your head, like, what has Max Homa done this year? I don't even remember him having a really good start to the year.
I mean, like, top 3 or 5 finish at
he had the Masters. Yeah, that's what it is. T3 at the Masters, T8 at Wells Fargo, T8 at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. It's a major and 2 signature events. So that'll do it, I guess. That puts that theory to rest real quick.
So, but here's the fun thing is looking, if you look in the top 30, so the people that if we just scrapped all this and it went in, we're going straight to East Lake. So some of the names that you just have to be happy about. You got friggin' Billy Ho in there.
Yeah.
Billy Ho, Taylor Pendrith way up there.
Matthew Pavon at number 16.
I mean, we kind of expected that. I mean, Matthew Pavon was in the top 4 until the 1/3 mark of the season.
Yeah, just happy to see him staying steady. Jason, how was Jason Day 23s? Am I forgetting stuff? I mean, it's a long season and we talk golf every week, so it very easily can. But Jason Day at 23, what did he do?
I think it's just the top 10 finishes have accumulated high enough.
I guess he was good early in the year because he had
Scam Young 35.
Yeah, like Jason. So here's Jason Day's season for you. Finished T10 at the Century to kick off the year. That's a signature event, technically, that if you win the past year, you get invited to. And if you play well, you get a shit ton of points for it. Finished T6 at Pebble Beach, 9th at Riviera, has 2 finishes better than 18th since. T4 at Wells Fargo, T13 at the Open. So I guess he's popped up in big boys every now and then, but I feel like Jason Day's been a ghost this year, man.
Here's one, and I mean this because we love him. But aside from quite literally the first tournament of the year, tell me, how is Keegan 43?
I don't know. Where else has Keegan popped?
I don't have an answer for that. Like, quite literally.
I guess we like undervalue. If you have like 2 high-end finishes, you're like kind of sitting pretty. At least in like big boy events. I think that's
How is
the thing
Patrick
about it.
Rogers 51?
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing too. Keegan finished T2 at the Charles Schwab. I should have remembered that. I was there. Duh. Those are his only. He has 2 top 10 finishes this year. Charles Schwab T2, Sony Open T2, then a T11 and a T18. Those are his only. He's only got 4 top 20s this year.
There's really only one player on here that stands out as having a respectable number, and it's seeing Victor at 55. I go, oh yeah, the way he played last year versus this year, Victor at 55 seems about right.
Spieth at 62 seems about right, I guess.
Yeah,
still popped every now and then, but I think that takes care of everything we wanted to talk through for the FedEx Cup standings before the season finale next week at the Wyndham Championship. Ross, any final thoughts on anything regarding golf before we move over to the Olympics, the main talking point of today's show?
No, we're on one more to go for all the marbles, and then we'll see half you guys in January.
But getting into the Olympics this week, the 3rd men's Olympic golf competition since the Olympics, or since golf returned to the Olympics in 2016. We obviously saw Justin Rose win the first gold medal in over a century in Rio de Janeiro. Xander Schauffele, that was really his crowning jewel until the 2024 campaign that he was the 2020 gold medalist at the Tokyo Summer Olympics. He now, of course, is not only the defending gold medalist, but a 2-time major champion now, and an argument for player of the year if he goes and wins this thing and defends his title. That certainly will. I don't know if it'll be put into the actual voting in the PGA Tour criteria, but I think us golf fans would certainly put a lot of weight and a lot of stock into that. But Ross, this is a really interesting event, man, because we only got 60 players here. The United States, of course, is the most represented with 4 players making it: Scotty Scheffler, Colin Morikawa, Xander Schauffele, and Wyndham Clark. It's a rather top-heavy field. We have a couple of live guys in the mix, most notably Jon Rahm, who just finally got his first victory since departing to live golf this past week, beating out teammate Tyrrell Hatton, who made a bogey on the last hole to allow Jon Rahm to win that thing. But Rambo's got some good vibes coming over here, Ross. Joaquin Niemann, who posted a T2 finish as well, along with Tyrrell Hatton last week in the UK, is here too. And then we got Rory McIlroy representing Ireland, Ludvig Aberg representing Sweden, Victor Hovland, Tommy Fleetwood, Tom Kim among the notables, Alex Noren, who's won this tournament as well. Kind of give me your vibes or your excitement level going into this, and maybe compared to like a signature event, or we know it's not at the level of a major championship, obviously, but what's kind of your vibes going into this tournament, Ross?
I mean, with it not, it only being the 3rd run back of this since being reinstated into the Olympics, for me, it's kind of like a player's vibe. Like leading up, it's a nice little nugget right before the FedEx Cup playoffs, something to look at. Where, I mean, it's golf on a world stage, right? We're gonna get. I don't want to say like a major vibe, but you're gonna get the best players in the world. I mean, aside from Bryson, to participate in this. It's a world golf tournament, man. It's gonna be exciting. I kind of throw it up there with like the players for me. Like I'm going to watch. I'm going to tune in and follow along. Anytime it's not going to match the same energy as like the Ryder Cup or President's Cup, but anytime there's a Team USA out there, I'm going to tune in and watch and see where we go again.
Yeah, that's the interesting part about it is whenever we are used to seeing golf at the national stage, you feel like it's right for a team event in the sense of a President's Cup or in the sense of a Ryder Cup. And you always have like a side to cheer for. Whereas in this individual type of tournament, right? Like, I think it's natural to want to pull for the Americans as an American, but at the same point in time, it's not like I'm necessarily only rooting for them. Like, feels like my patriotism, it's hard for that to come out in an individual type of sport. Yeah, I'll be glad to see any of them win and to bring the gold medal back to the United States, but it's not like I'm like rooting against Rory McIlroy because he's from Northern Ireland or anything like that. So it makes for a little bit of a unique type of event. And I don't know if you've been hearing the whispers of a potential mixed team event at the 2028 Olympics, which will be held at Riviera, which I think is going to have a nice flair around it, being in the United States and being played at the Central Time Zone. It'll obviously be a little bit bigger, I think, in the TV market, being based in North America here in the States. Have you kind of thought about those rumors about like a potential mixed competition?
I think I wrote an article about it in like January. But I mean, if that's gonna be the case, like give Scotty and Nelly Court gold.
Yeah, right.
4 years in advance.
Like that would be something, that easy patriotism that you feel like can come out to. But in the individual sense, it's a little bit weird. But regardless, I'm pretty excited for this tournament. It is a top heavy type of field, and I do ultimately think that one of those top guys is going to come away with the gold medal. But in the past two editions of the tournament, things have been a little bit wonky. I mean, back in 2020 in Tokyo, Rory Sabatini went and shot 61 on Sunday to nearly take home the gold and ended up coming away with the silver medal. It's his highest finish that he's had in the last 10 years, and no one even really knows where Rory Sabatini is at this point in time. Rory Sabatini, if you happen to be watching or listening to this, just let us know that we are thinking about you and wishing you well. But Ross, why I'm really excited about this year's edition of the Olympics is mostly because of the course. I think this is undoubtedly the best venue of the three Olympic men's golf competitions we've had since golf returned from that 112-year hiatus in the Olympics. Le Golf National has been a course that's been on the big stage before, not only as the host of the French Open, which has been a staple of the DP World Tour for a long, long time. It's actually the oldest running tournament in oldest running open, national open in continental Europe. Le Golf National has been the host of that event in 29 of the past 31 years since it opened in 1990. It was also the site of the 2015 Senior Open, the 2018 Ryder Cup, which, you know, for us Americans, we kind of like to forget that one, where the Europeans waxed the red, white, and blue. But this is a course that's been on the big stage before and is actually quite honestly built to be on the big stage. It has nice stadium style setting to allow for big crowds to be out there. It felt like it was made for an Olympic event like this or a Ryder Cup. It was just meant to be on the grand stage, and it's a nice, unique type of setup. It's not the longest course in the world. It's going to run shorter than 7,200 yards, which in the modern day PGA Tour era is super short. I mean, only 3 or 4 courses on the regular schedule are that short, but it kind of sets up like a classical Florida track, Ross, which is really interesting when you think, you know, the middle of Paris, France. You don't necessarily think Florida or anything, but there's a lot of water hazards around this course on 10 of the 18 holes, in particular the final 4 holes that make for a really grueling closing stretch. But there are some tight fairways, and it's really paramount to be playing from the fairway, because the bigger you miss, the more jeopardy and more potential that you're putting yourself in harm's way. This course really penalizes big misses. So historically, you've seen a lot of guys play less than driver off of the tee, even though like there's not a ton of long par 4s. I want to say 6 out of the 11 par 4s are shorter than 450 yards. So not going to be a problem even for guys laying up, but it's just not a driver heavy course because you're really trying to stay out of the trouble. And there hasn't been a winner of the French Open that's reached higher than -16 on the scoreboard in its history, Ross. So I think it's going to be a rather good test of golf. And ultimately, that's why I do think, similar to a major championship, you're going to have all parts of your game going to work on this course, especially with the top end quality of the field. So I'm rather excited to see this thing play out. I've been watching videos and highlights of the French Open from the last couple of years to kind of get a vibe of this course. And this is a little bit of a symptom of the DP World Tour. And usually, you know, at that level of golf, winning becomes a little bit harder. And there historically have been a lot of meltdowns down the stretch on Sunday on the DP World Tour. But the final two Sundays of the French Open have been electric. Guido Migliozzi came back. I want to say he was down 6 at one point in the final round, came back to win. And then Rio Hisatsune had a solid final round, shot 5 under 66 to win the most recent edition of the French Open in 2023. So, Ross, I think it's going to be a lofty test of golf, man. I'm rather excited to see how it's going to unfold. I do know there has been a lot of rainfall in Paris over the last couple of weeks. It's kind of been a main story line through the early portion of the Olympics here. So that could allow for the course to play a little bit softer and make it easier to control your golf ball, particularly in the first couple of days of the tournament, because there's not going to be like excruciating hot temperatures. And I think it's going to take a little while for the course to bake up. But I'm still looking at guys who, again, are just a high quality, high caliber player that can rise to the top against the best in the world and have all parts of their game going right now. So I'm rather interested to see how you kind of have gone about things so far with your betting card this week, as we're, you know, in the first day of the lead up to this year's golf Olympic competition.
So breaking news to anyone that normally tunes into our show. I broke my rule this week. My rule of hard cap of no single digits, never bet. Well, it's the Olympics and it only happens every 4 years, so I can break my rule every once in a while. I did bet towards the top of the board. I went, and my breaking news is I went and I bet the best golfer in the world until someone beats him. You just got to keep riding that vibe. And I marked down that Xander Schauffele is going to win another gold medal.
I see what you did there, my friend. You're dissing the old Scotty, the old boogeyman. I don't blame you for kind of going against your rule this week, because this field is so short. There's only 60 players, and quite honestly, there's only really 15 to 20 that I'm kind of looking at. I mean, there are legitimately players in this field that I have never heard of, and I'm a golf sicko who's on databases all the time. So I think that's kind of saying something when there's players in this field that I legitimately have never heard of. So I understand it, and it feels like if there is a time to break the rule, it is this week. I still haven't really figured out how I'm going to go about things, but again, with the way that I'm looking at it, I think a top 15 player is probably going to win this thing. All those players, for the most part, are ranked inside 35, or on the odds board are listed inside 35 to 1. So it's like, how do I kind of squeeze how I usually go about a betting card into this type of odds board, especially now that people have been bet down here on Monday morning? I mean, it is a rather disgusting odds board, if I'm being honest. So, I mean, part of me has legitimately just thought about using a 30% boost that I have out there, going and getting Scotty at 5 to 1. Man, it's, you know, I don't really like putting $100 down that I normally disperse throughout the course of a week on multiple different golfers. I don't really like putting that on one single guy. And I usually like my ROI to be a little bit higher than, 5 to 1 payout. But again, the Olympics, it's kind of its own thing. And I think you have to look at it with a little bit of a different mindset than you would for the stereotypical PGA Tour, DP World Tour event, Ross. So I certainly understand going with Xander Schauffele, man. He's got the mojo right now. We know he can do it. We know he's got the well-rounded craft to do it. And quite honestly, I underestimated that skill set going into the Open Championship. Like the same way that I'm thinking about Le Golf National, I really think it could play a little bit more difficult than Valhalla did for the PGA Championship, even though it's going to be soft. Like I think it could be a similar-ish type of setup where we're going to see a winning score around 16 or 17 under, but you're going to have to get yourself out of jail from time to time. There's pop bunkers. If you miss big off the fairway, there's long ryegrass and fescue rough. There's water hazards all over this place. I mean, it is a Florida track. There's landmines all over the place. So you're going to have that well-balanced nature We know Xander Schauffele absolutely has that, and now his confidence has to be in another gear. So I don't hate it whatsoever. I was texting my group chat on Monday morning with a couple of my buddies. I said, who you think is winning gold, boys? First answer I got back was Xander.
It just feels like where the previous narrative for him was no majors, no majors. Well, now he's got two of them. And what are we entering? We're entering the event that Xander has conquered. If there's ever a time for him to have the confidence, it's taking out these two majors so far this year. And now we're going to the world event that, oh, I am the reigning champion of this on top of that. I feel like vibes have never been higher in a better position for him to just kind of walk in there, do what he's been doing consistently in all these big events all year long, and just run it back.
Yep.
It just feels like that's the vibe, and that's the way I would be treating it if on him. I finally broke through on the big stuff, and now we're heading to the event that is quite literally my event.
Yeah, there are plenty of reasons to be delighted in Xander Schauffele's chances this week, so I'm not going to fight tooth and nail with you on betting Xander, but I believe that's the only guy you have in as of right now. But who else are you kind of hovering around, or who else are you kind of taking a liking to? Is there any other names that really stood out to you? I know when you go that high at the top of the board, there might not even be any other flyers, especially when it is this weird type of week. But was there just anyone that kind of stood out to you?
I took a look at Rom. I mean, he's been bet down to 10. That's probably going to be out for me now. I mean, like you said, it's really hard just looking at the board. I mean, if you're going 7 through 10, or if you're going 1 through 10, the 10th best guy on the board is 25.
Yeah, exactly. Like the odds are slashed in this bad boy. Yeah. And that's why it's hard to squeeze multiple of them in. If anything, like you only have room for two.
Yeah, I think if I was going to do anything, I'd probably round it out at 3. I'd probably take a look at Tom Kim at 25 and then cap it off with your boy Decky at 35.
Yeah. At the top, I've been torn. I've thought about
Corey Connors at 30.
It's not the Valero Texas Open. I don't think I can get there with Corey Connors. But he is playing a lot better, and most notably, he's putting and chipping better, which has always been his Achilles heel. I do think better things are to come for Corey Connors. I don't know if he's going to be taking down the Olympics. I don't know. Better yet, let me say, I don't know if I can bet Corey Connors 35 to 1 to take down the Olympics, is I guess how I should phrase it. I'm always here as a Corey Connors stan. For those who have been longtime listeners or viewers, and I've been a longtime rider on the Corey Connors hype train, but don't think I'm going to be betting on him to win the gold. For me at the top, though, Ross, I've been riding this guy for far too long, man. He is kind of chalk god this week, though, which I don't love as someone who's been on him for a long time. Colin Morikawa could use a 30% boost to get him up to 15 to 1, but still really low odds. This course makes a lot of sense for him, though. Like, just hitting the ball in the fairway. The irons have been good. I've talked time and time again here on the show with you about the strides he's made in both the around the green play and with the putting. A lot like Corey Connors as well, but the iron play has returned to peak level for Morikawa as well. It feels like he's right there at the top in contention like every week, and I really still feel like he's going to win either this, or I really think he's going to win the St. Jude. Like, he's just playing so well in all areas, exactly what I'm looking for. So he's kind of the one at the top for me, although I will say, like I mentioned earlier, part of me was just considering taking my money and throwing it all on Scotty, because I imagine he's going to be somewhere a couple of shots within the lead, if not having the lead on Sunday. So that's still in my mind. But other people that I've thought about, Fleetwood 22 to 1, I don't hate. We're not in America. He's won on this course. I wish he was coming in with a little better form, though. So I'm not like in love with Fleetwood. I just don't hate it. Tom Kim, I kind of wish I bet the 33 to 1 that was out there on him earlier today. He was actually the first round leader at the French Open last year and wound up finishing, I believe, in the top 10, but I bet on him at the Scottish Open. He's been someone who he's had his game translate all over the globe throughout his young career thus far, and has been able to, figure out that this isn't a link style course, but it has some links elements with like the rolling terrain and the fescue and the bent grass and Poa Green complex mix. So I like that he just has some sense of comfortability. So Tom Kim, he's going to be popular as well a little bit further down, but there's a lot of attraction there. I think Alex Noren is going to be super popular, although I don't know if I want to bet him 30-1 to win the Olympics. You referenced Hideki earlier. I think very fair number, 35, 40-1. I know was out there on Bet Rivers for Hideki. After 40-1, like there's really not that much that's enticing to me. I might bet Straka at 50, and then my long shot, my Seabez. There was, I actually posted this earlier, the 28-1. Did you see that? Fanatics was posting a 28-1 number on Christian Bezadenhout. I'm like, I don't know who's working your numbers board here, Fanatics, but they got something a little wrong. I promise you, no one's rushing to the counter to bet Seabez 28-1 to win the gold medal. But my long shots here, there's two. Vic Perez, the Frenchman, a lot of experience on this course, and Nikolai Højgaard. I really like Nikolai Højgaard on this type of setup. And of course, he has a lot of experience on the DP World Tour. I don't know if I'm going to bet him to win, but I did see, I think he was 12-1 on a top 5 with ties. So that's kind of where I was thinking a little bit further down the board, but I'm still a little bit in a mental pretzel as to exactly where I'm going to go. I expect ultimately to end up on Morikawa because I'm a sucker and I can't help myself, and I've committed, and I'll have huge FOMO if he wins the gold and I don't have a part of it because I've been backing him all year. But I'll be, I believe I'll be having a show later on this week with Mr. Joey Riccata once again, the winner from last week, to dissect who he's going to be going with this week to win the gold medal. And then I'll be going through my finalized picks as I've gathered some more information. I'm still kind of researching everything, and I actually just posted my research article prior to jumping on here. For anyone who want to check that out, go and find that at ontapsportsnet.com for a deep dive on the Golf National, the field this week, and everything you need to know ahead of the men's Olympic golf competition. But Ross, do you expect to bet anyone else? You think you're throwing a single bullet on Xander this week, or what's kind of the mindset with the betting card?
With the card, I think realistically, I'm probably going to end up topping out with 3. Xander was the only one before it gets mashed down. It was already, I got him at like 6. Yeah. So before it gets mashed down any further, I went and pulled the trigger early. I'm thinking maybe like a Tom Kim and Hideki added on there because if Hideki can put it all together, he's one of the best players in the world. So why not on the world stage? I don't know if you saw Joel Beal from Golf Digest picture of Scotty Scheffler showing up at La Nacional.
No, I did not.
He posted a picture of him and just quoted it from convict to Olympian, the promise of America.
Love it. America in a nutshell. Convict representing us at the Olympics, baby. That's what we love. As far as what I'm thinking, I'll probably get to Morikawa. I do like the Tom Kim shout as well. Might get to Sepp Straka at 50-1. But yeah, probably going to be a small card just because it is that top heavy field. We got short beat down odds already on everyone, but I'm excited for this tournament, man. I think, we just don't get many opportunities to represent your country. And even though it is a little bit more of a unique circumstance with this being individual compared to team golf, as far as the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup goes, which we'll be seeing later on this fall, of course, I'm still excited for this thing. I think it is like a mini type of major. I still feel like, though, Ross, the one thing about it is it's still so new to us that we haven't really grasped the significance of what this tournament is going to be. And also, I still think we haven't really even grasped the significance of what winning this tournament is going to be as well. And I think you had a comparison earlier saying kind of gives you the vibes of a Players' Championship. I ultimately think that's what this is going to go down as, although maybe a little bit higher the further away we get from now in terms of like what winning in Olympics will be on your resume. Like when we think of Justin Rose, I still don't think we like exactly know how to quantify his gold medal, but with this tournament being won every 4 years and just with how strict and small of a field it is, like there are just limited opportunities to win this thing. So I really do feel like with time and especially 2028, it coming to Los Angeles, being played at Riviera, and the potential of the mixed team event. Like, I really feel like the feelings around this tournament is only going to be elevated for years to come. Do you feel the same?
I feel the exact same way, because you hit it perfectly on the head with the fact that this thing is only every 4 years. We're going to get this tournament. If you think about it, the farther away we get from this and continue to cycle over a 4-year period, there can become a time where a guy goes on a 2 to 3 year run, cleans house on majors, makes a name for himself, and doesn't get the Olympics in there. But there's other people that do. And it's just, for how spaced out it is, you can have someone go on a career run, make a career of themselves, but they never get to the Olympics and never get to showcase this skill. And then down the road, that can be pointed out that, oh, but they didn't, they won 3 majors in 2 years, but they didn't get. So where Xander already kind of had the reverse of, Xander, his claim to fame prior to this year was he's the Olympic gold medalist. Now he's got 2 majors this year. Now he's going back. He's the reigning gold medalist, along with he's got half the majors this year. Now it's kind of a storyline. Can Xander get his gold again?
Yeah. And I think even before Xander got those 2 majors, when people would say, oh, he is the gold medalist, the bite back against that would still be, well, how do we quantify that? It wasn't a different type of field, whereas it wasn't necessarily generating the respect that I think it ultimately will years and years down the line once this like newness kind of goes away and it becomes a little bit more of a staple, like I do envision it being, because I really do think it is a cool type of unique experience that these players do get to have. And there's not enough of playing for your own country. I firmly believe in professional golf, and the players are going to be appreciative of this experience. And we didn't really get to see like the full embodiment of Xander Schauffele's celebration in 2020 because unfortunately due to COVID, he had to wear the mask and there were a lot of pictures, but it has to be just such a hard to describe type of feeling being up there with a gold medal and representing your country, but also feeling like you just accomplished something individually. It has to be such a grand rush of emotion that, again, we still haven't really been able to capture because it all is so new. So I'm excited to see how it's going to shake out. I'm excited to see what type of test exactly Le Golf National is going to provide. I hope that the wet conditions are not going to allow this thing to get overpowered. I know that's kind of what Le Golf National has done a good job of preventing historically, and I don't think guys are going to be hitting drivers left and right, but I would like to see it produce like a 13 to 14 under type of winner. I don't know if that's actually going to be in the cards like it has been in past years, but it should all be a lot of fun. Excited for things to get underway on Thursday. Now it really does feel like we're getting into that Olympic swing. We got the basketball underway with a huge win over Serbia over the weekend as well. I turn on the YouTube TV, Ross, and there's all different types of sports that I can't tell you the last time I watched them. I was watching women's skateboarding on Sunday morning. I mean, it was just the weirdest conglomerate of TV that you could have imagined for me yesterday. I mean, archery, women's skateboarding, water polo, badminton, the 3M Open, Live Golf. I mean, it was all over the place, but I'm absolutely here for it. Rooting for the red, white, and blue this week, Ross.
Red, white, and blue. Let's go.
We'll see if it's going to be Scotty Scheffler or Xander Schauffele potentially, though, from the red, white, and blue. It would be quite interesting if we got a head-to-head, those two down the stretch to go and fight for the gold. We'll see if that winds up coming to fruition, but Thank you again to everyone who tuned into this episode of Golf on Tap. We greatly appreciate you jumping in with us. Again, a reminder to go and follow Golf on Tap on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you may be listening to your podcast. That way you're able to catch up with us on all of the latest episodes, even when you're not able to join us live. And go and throw a follow to Golf on Tap as well on X. We're starting to get those numbers up a little bit there, which we greatly appreciate, and it won't cost you anything to hit that follow button. And we would greatly appreciate it. From Jack Bushman and Ross Baran, everyone enjoy the men's Olympic golf competition and the women's, which is also going to be played at Le Golf National as well the week after. Until next episode, everyone, crack 'em, lock 'em, and have a great rest of your night.